what are the most exciting tech trends out there right now in relation to small business? Tom?
Well, I reckon the blockchain, it's not on our doorstep now, but it's just at the front gate, I reckon. And what the blockchain is going to enable is a huge empowerment for small business to automate a lot of dealings and agreements in the form of smart contracts. I think that's going to be huge. To also dovetail out of that, I think that data is going to become our property, and we're going to understand the value of our own data, be that of small business or us personally. And we're going to be able to find leverage in negotiating with suppliers and other technology companies to say, if you would like to use our data, then there's a value attached to that. So I think that's going to be a really exciting opportunity for business.
Yeah, but Tommy, when people hear the word blockchain, they think, hey, it sounds really complicated. Is it something that can be dumbed down so people who are busy running their business can pick up this technology pretty quickly and pretty easily?
Well, compare it to when the internet was in its infancy in the 90s. You know, it was a clunky experience to get online.
Yeah.
Connections were unstable. There was a lot of hardware required. We're at a similar time now with the blockchain. We've just been through an experience that on our television show where we sold an episode as a non-fungible token. And a lot of people said, we really want to get involved, but it's just too hard. We don't know how to buy it as an NFT. And so the technology and the interface, which opens up that technology, is still very clunky. So to answer your question, Peter, it is difficult to engage with the blockchain right now, but we're at the bottom of a very steep curve.
Okay. Steve, so what do you think is the trend that's out there that's going to be really important to small business going forward?
Yeah, the really important trend that I'm seeing is what I call natural language processing. I think in a few short years from now, anyone who's a non-technical person will be able to write their own code and their own software programs by literally speaking to their computer. You will train your computer like a dog and create software. And there's been some recent evolutions coming out of Silicon Valley. There's one company called Codex who've developed an AI where you literally tell it what to do and create software. And when that happens, and it will, we all become software developers, and that democratizes the world in a way that we've never seen. It doesn't matter how big your bank's balance is or your asset sheet, you can play at the same level as anyone in Silicon Valley. That's going to be extraordinary.
Well, give us a classic example of how a small business person might want to do coding to actually help their business.
Yeah, so you might have wanted to build an app for a long time, but you think it's quite costly. I don't exactly know how to design it. You can literally speak to the computer, say, this picture goes here. When the person clicks on that, it goes to here and it does this. It saves this information. And you've literally spoken to it and built an app. I mean, the power that will unlock, where our imaginations become the asset, that could be game changing.
Yeah. It seems to me, mate, if you can put that technology with maybe a 10-year-old son or daughter, you could take on the world.
Listen, we've got to go to our kids for business advice. You know, the innocence that they have in the imagination, we can unlock that.
Spot on. Okay, so how will 5G transform business in the future, in particular across a range of different industries? So, Tom, what do you reckon is the future of 5G in helping business?
Well, I think one of the things that 5G brings is it offers up everything to have a place on the internet. The Internet of Things is a concept which we've heard sort of attached to 5G technology, where everything from this glass of water to my headphones to everything will have an identity on the internet, and it will communicate, and it will take data, and it will also publish data as well. So I think that's a huge opportunity for businesses to be hyper connected and have everything accountable. There's the old saying, if it can't be measured, then it can't be improved. Now, everything can be measured and everything can be improved. We've got a segment on our TV show where it's a 5G makeover, and we go into a business and we basically inspire the business around what's possible. And we might go into a plant nursery, and now your most expensive plants can have a sensor to say when the water levels or the toxicity levels in the plant need to be updated, quenched or remedied. The sensors will let the shop know. So there's a whole raft of ways that these things can now start talking to us.
Yeah. So Steve, I always thought 5G was just purely for getting Netflix and Stan faster and faster, but what other applications can 5G be used for to help a small business?
Yeah, I think that 5G is one of those classic ones where these fantasy internet elements we've been speaking of, come to fruition. The classic one for me is augmented reality. And I'm a big fan of augmented reality, maybe even more than virtual, where we can have glasses that we can put on and give us a heads-up display in our retail store or our factory to be able to see real-time information of goods movements, supply chain, all of those things. And it'll really bring on this idea of digital twins, where everything that is physical that exists in our world will have a twin of that, a twin of our retail store or a twin of our factory or a twin of anything that we're doing or the products. And we can go online and update the physical version, or whenever anything happens on the physical version, it updates the virtual version. This is what 5G enables because we don't have to be fixed in a certain location. It becomes ambient technology, and we have this meta structure of information that can feed into us and help us make decisions and do better business.
Exciting. I'm also excited about something called Call Translate. Explain, Tom, what this technology is and how it can be useful for a small business.
Yeah, it's an exciting product that Optus is offering at the moment, or certainly shortly, where essentially the call will receive the conversation from someone who speaks another language, and an AI will take that voice, and all you will hear is your native tongue. So we worked with a recruitment company to do an experiment with this, and they wanted to expand into Asia. So now they can talk to candidates, and they can be speaking Mandarin on one end of the call, but they will hear that Mandarin translated by an AI into English and vice versa to the other end. So it totally makes globalization and language barrier vanish instantly. It's an incredibly powerful piece of technology.
Yeah. Is it going to be easy to introduce into the business, Steve?
Yeah, I think it will be, because it's going to be one of those plug and play technologies. You switch it on, you use it, and it works. And if we just think about business from a perspective, and even a job interview, the example that Tommy gave, that becomes a language contest. Now, if you're an accountant, maybe that might not be the core principle of what matters. With this, it opens up the potential for candidates, even globally, opens up the workforce potentiality. And anyone who's done business in an international sense knows that the biggest challenge is never usually the technology. It's the cultural imperatives of understanding each other's needs. And language is humanity's killer app. And if we can cross that chasm with different languages, really, we get into that global market that we've been speaking about for so long. It's finally here.
So, Tom, if you're thinking about all these innovations you guys are talking about, the customers out there who have to consider it, whether it's offered by Optus or any other company in that space, what's going to be the real driver? Is it purely the fact that innovations equal cost reductions or more sales, more customers?
Definitely. If there's not a business case behind new technology, it's redundant before you even started. So I think there's a couple of things. You want to outsource the need to understand it. Steve's got this great anecdote where he says that what he loves about Apple products is they require no user manual. And technology needs to be able to have that plug and play. So the service that's wrapped around these products is absolutely critical. Another consideration is, I think, is ethics behind some of this technology. I think we're seeing big tech get bigger, and we're seeing these products which are labeled as free really sit on the line, or 1 foot over, of actually exploiting our rights and our data and those sorts of things. So I think the ethics of technology is going to be a major component of the decision making for businesses as well going forward.
Steve, what's your take on that subject?
Yeah, well, I think that one of the things that's interesting with technology is it reduces cost over time. So many of the exponential technologies that we're facing, they're not that expensive. I mean, Tom mentioned the free element there, but the barriers to entry are so low now, it doesn't take much other than a bit of your time to experiment. And the advice I give every business I speak to is experiment often and early. Get to understand the technology, play with it, understand its implementation and its potential before you overinvest. And then that way you can work out what's right for you and make that business case. But generally, technology in this perspective, in a connectivity perspective, is getting cheaper and more powerful. And so it reduces those barriers to entry. One of the important things that we need to realize, like Tommy said, is don't grow your veggies in someone else's garden. Make sure you're investing for yourself and you build and own an infrastructure that gives you control in your business and that direct connection with your customers. That becomes really important.
Yeah. So, Tom, in many ways, what I'm thinking is that a business owner really has to have a significant contribution in their business plan to what is my tech plan? What are the innovations I have to introduce? How can I go about making it happen? Do I need people to help me, or can I actually do it myself?
Yeah, I think a data strategy and a technology strategy is absolutely important. And it's okay not to understand it. Bring in a specialist where you can. But on the flip side to that, there's never been an easier time to learn the basics of these sorts of things. All of the information around the benefits of using technology is available, and a lot of the time it's very accessible from a intellectual point of view. So you can, as Steve said, if you have, let's just say you got 5% of your budget goes to the experimentation of technology, where you're trying things on the fringe all the time. You're bringing in consultants to have fresh eyes on the business. Those sorts of things is really important from a cultural point of view inside every organisation.
Okay. What is the really outside the square bonkers technology thing that's coming that you think will be a real game changer for business? Tom, you first.
I think autonomous vehicles are going to be a huge evolution in how things move around. I think that cars are essentially going to be rolling computers, and we won't need, logistics is going to be completely frictionless. As soon as you have essentially robots and drones delivering stuff automatically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the opportunities for business there are endless.
Okay. Steve, what's your take?
Yeah, I think that one of the interesting things is what I call the proxy economy, where I talked about digital twins earlier, but I think soft robotics are going to take on the world in a way that we never saw coming. We've all seen the Boston Dynamics robots and the soft Sophia robot. You put those two together and we'll literally have robotics in and around doing a lot of the human labor that, maybe humans could be better spent doing something else. And so we might look back in 20 or 30 years from now and say, we can't believe that humans clean toilets. We can't believe that humans, lifted up beds in aged care places when they should be holding someone's hand and caring for them. So it's all about taking the robot out of the human. And that's one of the things I think will be incredibly interesting. Yeah. And we might even have proxies for ourselves, Peter. We can stay in bed and send out our proxy to do our work for us. Are you really here, or have you sent your robot? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. It's a really good idea, because I've got too much on my plate at the moment. A good robot would be fantastic.